Chapter 37. The Requirements of Obedience. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 26 to 32. Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, and a curse, if you will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God hath brought thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt put the blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the curse upon Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side Jordan, by the way where the sun goeth down, in the land of the Canaanites which dwell in the champaign over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For ye shall pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you, and ye shall possess it, and dwell therein. And ye shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 26 to 32. Moses declares that man's choice is between obedience and disobedience, and this means a choice between blessings and curses. Since all men are created by God, all men face this choice. Israel's decision brought greater repercussions in both directions. In Deuteronomy chapter 28, we have a fuller statement of what this means. Joseph Parker stated the matter very ably when he wrote that man is not meant to be a moral inventor, a maker of morals, that he has to accept a revealed morality and an offered righteousness, that God has been so kind to him as to arrange the whole way of life. But men seek to be moral inventors because man's original sin is to be his own God, his own determiner and inventor of law and morality. New situations do not necessitate new morals, as situation ethics holds. Antinomianism denies to God the power to determine good and evil. It is more in harmony with fallen man than anything else. God gives a motive for obedience, blessings. Man's preference, however, is for his own will to be done, not God's, and he chooses to disobey. In the Bible, a curse is much more than a verbal statement. It is the active and personal force of God's judgment at work in history against men and nations, and sometimes against the earth in the punishment of men. In Hoppe's words, the law, then, is not simply a legal code to pattern Israel's behavior. It is the key to the fullness of life that awaits Israel on the other side of the Jordan River. Fallen man's key to life is held to be his free choice, which, in essence, is a choice to dissent from God. Man wants the freedom to make decisions without consequences. He wants to determine what follows from his free choice rather than to face predetermined conclusions. Moses makes it clear that there are no consequence-free options. Man pays a price for his self-will. He cannot decide against God and for himself without paying the price. There are no such options in God's creation. The form of this choice is covenantal, and a covenant is a treaty. Ancient treaty-making involved a statement of curses and blessings or penalties and rewards for disobedience and obedience. Modern treaties have no such penalties and are not strictly speaking treaties, since they are made for convenience and without moral penalties. When God says, "Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse," verse 26. He tells us that we have a God-ordained choice to obey or disobey, so that the terms are set by God himself, not by man. Man wants, as his choice, the power to create alternatives of his choosing, whereas God declares that the choices and the consequences are of his ordination. Centuries later, God, through Isaiah, described such people as men who say, "Stand by thyself, come not near me, for I am holier than thou. These are a smoke in my nose, a fire that burneth all the day." Isaiah chapter 65, verse 5. This is, of course, self-righteousness or Phariseeism, or as Isaiah said, and from whom the term comes, holier than thou. This is the attitude of humanism, as evidenced by our contemporary, quote, politically correct, end quote, self-created elite. Geography comes into the matter as in verse 29, reference is made to two mountains, Gerizim and Ebal. Gerizim to represent blessings and Ebal curses. Mount Gerizim had fertile slopes, while Mount Ebal, representing curses, stood barren and sterile. In Deuteronomy 27, we see the practical application of this. Samuel Knowles Driver, 1846 to 1914, a very influential Old Testament scholar, also influenced churches deeply with his modernisms. He held, with respect to Deuteronomy and the law, that duties are not to be performed from secondary motives such as fear or dread of consequences. They are to be the spontaneous outcome of a heart which is penetrated by an all-absorbing sense of personal devotion to God. This was the kind of opinion that led to antinomianism. Driver represented the triumph of humanism in biblical studies. Note how, first, he replaces simple obedience with a spontaneous outcome. How far would we get if we reduced man's reactions to commands not to kill, steal, or commit adultery to a spontaneous desire only? Man's natural goodness is assumed by Driver. This may have been true, let us assume, at Oxford in Driver's day when it was a church-dominated town. But even Driver should have known better had he known himself. Second, Driver apparently equated humanity with the angels in assuming a heart from which every taint of worldliness has been removed and which is penetrated by an all-absorbing sense of personal devotion to God. In my student days, both at the university and in seminary, Driver's words were more respected than the Bible. We should not be surprised at what our world has become. An older, more traditional perspective on this text was given by C. Clements when he titled this text as "The Dread Alternative Before Every Man." Our Lord repeatedly calls attention to this choice, as does John also in John chapter 3, verses 18 to 21. Man was created to be a moral being, and moral choices are inescapable for him. They do not disappear when he denies them. God's test of men is in terms of their choices. If they are of Christ, they reveal it in their works, their fruits. The commandment, therefore, is plain spoken. And ye shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. Verse 32. The statement is not an appeal saying, think about it and make God happy by doing what he suggests. It is a blunt command, do it. Man is not asked to reflect on what God says nor to understand it, but to obey it. Contemporary education stresses the participation of the child, who is urged to comment on the teaching, express opinions, and to treat the body of knowledge as something to be judged, to be taken only at will. The result is ignorance, because the self-importance of the child is cultivated rather than his self-discipline. Education for ignorance and arrogance is the result. The antinomianism of the churches has been a major force in this evil development. We have had a child-centered education, and not only God, but subject content has lost its rightful place. Life is neither child-centered nor man-centered, and it is an illusion to think so. Life is God-centered. It serves His purposes or incurs His judgment. Curses and blessings, rewards and punishments are therefore inseparable from life. The disaster of quote-unquote public education has been its abandonment of rewards and punishments. In the 1950s, a woman was called to the school for consultation about her son, described on the telephone as a social deviate. She hurried to the school in shock and alarm. She found that her son's problem was that he read books during recess instead of playing. We can see why education has been going downhill since then. Such rewards and punishments as do exist are not in terms of any valid standard.